What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install Linux. I'm going to be covering 10 different distributions, all of which I have heard of at least one time before outside of a little bit of research that I've been doing today. And I'm going to go through every single step on how to install it. I will be touching on how to configure it later on in another video. I'm going to go into more detail with each individual Linux distribution that I'm showing here. And I'm also going to be installing them on a virtual machine. Now, I'm doing that to save a little bit of time, but the process should be the same whether you're installing it on bare metal or the virtual machine itself. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Alright, so first up for today is going to be my personal favorite, Linux Mint. So Linux Mint is a Debian-based Linux distro based off of Ubuntu, actually. So when you first look up Linux Mint, this is going to be the home page. Now, every single one of these Linux distributions, I have already downloaded the ISO just to save some time, but I'm going to show you how to download them nonetheless. So for Linux Mint, we are going to go to download here on the main screen, and you can choose your different desktop environment. There is Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE. I'm not too familiar with either XFCE or Mate, so I use Cinnamon personally. Then you just click download and go to your mirror. So you want to choose whether you're a 64-bit user or a 32-bit user. Most machines these days are 64-bit, but you can choose to use 32-bit if necessary for whatever reason. And for this mirror, I found that Advanced Hosters is actually the fastest. So you go ahead and you save that. I have another video that shows you how to install it to a USB drive, the actual ISO itself. But I'm not going to be doing that in this video here, since I'm going to be showing you how to just set up or install these different Linux distributions. And I'm going to be doing that with VirtualBox. So I'm going to start a new virtual machine here. So it turned out that you actually need a minimum of 12.7 gigabytes of storage. Whoops, I don't want that much. That's a little too much. There we go, that's 2 gigabytes. So we're going to create a virtual hard disk. And it needs to be at least, I would say 13, but if you're going to be installing this on a USB drive, it is a good rule of thumb to just go with 16 or higher. So I'm going to set that to 16. I'm going to go ahead and start this up, and it's going to pop it up on a different screen for a second. So I'm going to select my ISO, and I'm going to start it. I'm going to set this to full screen to show you what you're going to be seeing when you're installing this. So you get this little splash screen giving you the different options for installation. If you just let it sit, it will automatically start it up for the installation. And you get the nice spinning Linux Mint splash screen. So for the display, I'm actually going to just enlarge this just to get a little bit better view, just so it's easier to see. Alright, so when we go to install, we are going to double-click on the Install Linux Mint. And now it's going to ask us for our language of choice. That is going to be whatever language. I am using English because I speak English, and that is my first language. And our keyboard layout, mine is English US, and not any of these derivatives here. And for this install multimedia codecs, this is not absolutely necessary, but I like to do it anyways because it does help with certain websites in formatting them correctly, so that way all your media types are showing up. I have not seen any issues not using it, but there is probably an edge case out there where you do absolutely need this, so I just go ahead and install that anyways because it takes just a little bit more time and makes sure that you're viewing web pages properly. You can install them later on as well. So we are going to erase a disk and install Linux Mint. I'm going to go to install now. This is just going to say that it's basically going to wipe the drive, but since I'm using a virtual drive, it is going to reformat it. And I'm going to select my location. My time zone is New York. Going to continue, and I'm just going to set up everything with the arch name. And you are going to set your password, and you could choose to encrypt your home folder. That's if you feel like that if in any circumstance your data is going to be compromised, like let's say you're using a laptop and somebody steals your hard drive out of it for whatever reason, you can actually use this method to basically tie it to your motherboard. I believe that's how it works. I know that's how it works on Windows when you encrypt your drive, but I'm not sure if that's how it works on this. But that is a little bit of extra security just in case you want a little more ease of mind. So now it is going to go ahead and it's going to copy over all the files from the ISO and get them all set up on the boot image. Or, yeah, our installed OS. Alright, now it is all set installing, so we are going to go ahead and hit restart now. And if you're doing this on bare metal, this will do a restart on your system. We're going to go ahead and hit enter, and this will boot you into your freshly installed Linux Mint. Going to sign in with my password, and that is going to give us a pop-up message. There we go. Welcome to Linux Mint. And this is to help you get started, so it shows you your first steps, so you can select your colors, you can select your panel layout. I prefer the modern. And since I'm on a virtual machine, I'm not going to be using drivers, because even if I go into here, it won't even show a driver for me. And the thing that I like about Linux Mint is that it actually gives you a little update badge right here. This is the update manager. And it requires an update initially at first just to make sure that you're getting everything that you need, and see there's no drivers. So let's just go past that. Let's get out of the welcome here. And it gives you a whole bunch of different options to configure right out of the gate. So this is one of my favorites. Well, that is going to be it for Linux Mint. I will show everybody else how to configure it in more detail later on in a different video. So let's get on to our next operating system. And next up for today is going to be the well-renowned Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is basically the Linux for all type of Linux. So it is very easy to get into. Even if you read on articles that is very difficult to get into, it's very much easy to get into. Once you figure out what it is that you're going to be doing, it is very easy. Google will be your friend while using Ubuntu. Anything you don't know, you will find. So we're going to go to download. Okay, so I downloaded 21. And it will automatically start downloading it for you. So I'm going to be showing you how to start with Ubuntu 21. Alright, so when you first boot into your Ubuntu installer, this is the first thing that you're going to see. It looks kind of like a BIOS, but it's actually called Grub. And I forget exactly what it stands for, but this is your basic subsystem before you get into Linux. So you just go ahead and hit enter. And it does the same thing as Linux Mint, where it will automatically select the installation. Ooh, this actually looks pretty nice now. So I'm very familiar with 18.04 and 20.04, but this is actually the first time I'm seeing 21. And I use Ubuntu Server basically daily at work, because we have to make sure that the stuff that we use is compatible with our systems, and we like to use Ubuntu because it's all open source and free. That is a very creepy background. Okay. A very nice little jingle. Okay, so we got our language here. Got install Ubuntu, or you could just try it if you want to just mess around and see if you like it. I'm going to go ahead and install it, since I am doing a tutorial on how to install these. I'm going to go ahead and continue. And we are going to do a normal installation. And we are going to download the updates while installing Ubuntu. And that's going to take a little bit longer up front. That way you have all of everything that you need right out of the gate. But it says that it is going to save a bit of time after the installation, so I would imagine that it would take longer now. And just like Linux Mint, we are going to be doing the same thing with erasing a disk to install Ubuntu, and it is the same message as before, where it's going to erase the disk. And again, I'm going to be using my New York. Let's see if I can... Alright, so when it comes to settings, it looks like with the installer you can't really do much. Alright, so I'm going to be doing it the same way as before. I'm going to do the same password. So basically, when it comes to installation, it is going to be very similar to Linux Mint, if not exactly the same. Alright, so now our installation is complete. We're going to go ahead and do a restart, and that is going to boot into our permanent installation. Go ahead and press enter to confirm. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and log in here. That is still a really creepy desktop. Alright, so it's going to ask you if you want to connect any accounts. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and skip. And you can choose to send usage statistics to help improve Ubuntu. I usually opt out of it just because. And you can also choose if you want to share your location. Alright, so we are now in the Ubuntu environment. So let's get on to our next distribution. And next up is the ever-popular Manjaro Linux. I've heard a lot about it, but I have never had any experience with it. So we're going to go ahead and go to Try Manjaro. And it comes in XFCE with KDE Plasma or GNOME. And GNOME is a very similar layout to Ubuntu. So I downloaded the XFCE. You go ahead and open that up and go to the first download. Alright, and then when that pop-up comes up, you go ahead and save the file if you're using Firefox like I am. Alright, we're going to boot with open source drivers, because that will give you basically everything that you could need to get up and going. Then you can select your drivers afterwards. So let's say you're using an NVIDIA graphics card on your desktop like I am. You would then later go ahead and install those drivers. Alright, so here is the XFCE desktop environment. You're running Manjaro. And it gives you a whole bunch of stuff. It gives you the documentation, the support, and it gives you the installation right from this hello pop-up. And the reason why this is full screen now is because I actually set my VirtualBox to automatically set it to 1920 by 1080. So we're going to go ahead and launch installer. I do have to say, this is very nice. This is my first actual experience when it comes to it. Alright, our language is English. We're doing the American New York time zone. And we're going to select our defaults. And just like with the other two, we are going to erase the disk and continue to next. And we're doing the same thing, arch all the way around, using the similar password. Use the same password for the administrator account, and that will just disable it. Alright, so we got everything set up here, and this is giving you a little overview of what's going to happen. And we are going to install. Going to install now. This is actually pretty nice. I might actually give this one a shot because this actually looks very clean. I like the aesthetic. Not bad. It's a very Windows 7-ish vibe. And I like that. It's very nice. So just like the other ones, we're just going to let it go ahead and do its thing and install. And this actually gives you a little percentage on how far you are. Alright, so we are now done with installing Manjaro. That was by far the quickest one so far. Ubuntu actually taking the longest. We're going to go ahead and restart into our fresh installation. Alright, there we go. And we're going to go ahead and log in here. This is a very clean look, in my opinion. Very clean, very sleek. And this gives you a little bit of a different pop-up from before. You can just deselect that so it doesn't pop up every single time. Go ahead and launch for your applications. And you can actually choose to remove these if you want to, which is very nice. Now that we have that installed, let's go on to our next distribution. Next up on the list, if you've heard of Linux, you have heard of Arch Linux. This is by far the most popular Linux distribution, or at least the most heard of. So to install Arch Linux, it is actually a little bit more convoluted than the rest of them, where it doesn't just automatically bring you to download. So if you go to the home screen, it actually doesn't have anything to download here. So you're actually going to go to download, and you go to one of the mirrors here. So you could select your country and a mirror from your country. Since I am in the US, I'm going to use the United States Advanced Hosters because they're the quickest for me that I've noticed. But if you don't see your country listed here, you also get a worldwide ISO download. So let me show you with the United States one, just in case you want to go to the United States one. And the first thing you're going to do is select this one up here, which is the Arch Linux. For me, it is 2021 11.01. That was the latest release at the time of filming. x64_64.iso. And usually, it's going to be the biggest one. So you go ahead, click on that, and that is going to download it for you. As it turns out, awesome is not awesome. It's CLI based. Alright, so to begin our installation process, we're going to type arch install. And that is going to start our installation. We're going to use 26 for US, and then 52 for United States. We are going to do 1 for our primary drive, and ext4, since that is the Linux default. We're going to leave this blank for no encryption, and the desired host is going to be Arch, just because I feel like naming it that, but you can name it whatever you feel like. And the root password is going to be the password that I'm setting now, and I messed it up. And you do want to create an additional user. This is actually what you're going to be using as a user. So we're going to do Arch, because that's me. One more time. Should this user be super user? Yes, we want to install stuff. Enter a username. Since we don't want to add another one, we're going to skip and continue. Alright, we want desktop. And this time I'm going to use Cinnamon, because I know Cinnamon is an actual desktop environment. And I'm going to be using 4 for VMware, but this is where you select your graphics driver. You're going to be either using AMD, Intel, or NVIDIA. I'm not going to install Pipewire because I have no idea what it is. And I'm going to leave the kernel default, so just enter with a blank. And we're going to just do another blank, and here is where you're going to use your network interface. So it is going to be EN and then some form of different characters. So in this case for me it is EMP0S3, and in most cases that'll be your only one available. But you might also have Wi-Fi and Ethernet, so you could have 2 interfaces. Either one should work. We are going to do DHCP because we want to automatically assign an IP address. And we're going to do US Eastern, since that is my time zone, and I want to automatically sync. Alright, so now this is a recap of everything that we entered, and we are going to continue, and it will begin the installation. And now we should be loading into our permanent installation. Alright, so it looks like we actually got something going on here. Go ahead and log in. Let's see what we get. Alright, it looks like we're all set. Gonna set my display to full sized. Yeah, it looks like I don't get that luxury today. That looks pretty bad. But we now have Arch Linux all set and installed. Let's move on to our next distribution. So, next on the list is the well-renowned hacking OS, Kali Linux. So you go here to Bare Metal, and you're going to download the installer, and that'll bring you immediately to installing it. I already have it downloaded, so let's just jump right into it. Alright, we're going to do the graphical install. Okay, so we got our language here. Going to go ahead and continue after you select your language. Your location is going to be United States if you're in the United States. And you're going to select your keyboard. I'm doing American English. Detect and mount installation media. Alright, so now we have our host name. I'm just going to keep it default with Kali. Domain. I'm going to just leave that default. Alright, so I'm going to do my username for Arch. Username for the account is going to be the same. And now we are going to do the password. And also re-enter it to verify. Go ahead and continue. I'm going to select Eastern. And they have a nice guided installation, I would assume, because I've never used it before. And it looks like we're just going to keep hitting continue. Write changes to disks. You're going to say yes because you want to overwrite those disks and format them so you can properly use them. And now it is going to install our OS. Alright, so here we are going to select our desktop environment and tools. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this default and hit continue. And now we wait while our system installs. Alright, so now it is asking if we want to install Grub, which we do. And we are going to do our dev/SDA. And this should be the last steps of installing Kali. Alright, so now our installation is complete. We are going to go ahead and shut this down. So, I'm going to log in as Arch. There we go, and it detected the full screen. And now we have Kali fully installed. Let's go on to our next distro. Next up on the list is Zorin OS. Now there is a paid version which is $39, that is Zorin OS 16 Pro, but I'm going to end up just using Core, which is free. So I already went ahead and downloaded it, but you go ahead, click on download and skip to download, and it'll have you save the file. And we are going to do try or install Zorin OS. A little bit of an interesting boot up sound, but it is taking quite a while to start up. Alright, let's go ahead and install. It looks like if you have a smaller window that it's not going to show up properly. Alright, so we're going to skip doing the updates. and software, just so it's a little bit quicker. But that is advised to do if you want to just get it done and out of the way before you go right into the OS. Alright, so going to go ahead and erase the disk and install. So this looks like it's going to be a very similar process to Ubuntu. Go ahead and continue. Select our region. So yes, this looks like it's going to be the exact same process as Ubuntu. Alright, looks like our installation is complete, so we're going to go ahead and restart. Alright, so here we are. Go ahead and log in. And there we go. We are now in Zorin OS. With a very distinct chime. Very nice. And this is our setup screen. So we are all set here. Nice little UI going on. Now let's go ahead and go to our next installation. Next up on the list is the ever popular KDE Neon. We're going to go ahead and user edition live install. And that is going to bring you to download it immediately. And this looks very similar to Zorin OS already, just for the initial startup here. So I am fully expecting a very similar installation process here as well. Alright, here we go. Can close out that window. And here we have the KDE desktop. Very nice. It's very elegant and a little bloated, I'll admit. But that's not what we're here for. Let's just go ahead and install it. Gonna hit next. Select our time zone. Leave everything default. We're gonna go ahead and erase a disk. And I'm not going to encrypt the system. Master boot record. I guess I'm going to leave that default. Hit next. Put in my name as Arch. And set my password. And it looks like just like that, we are already in for installation. And here we have the settings screen. Just going to blow up the display a little bit. Get it a little bit bigger, because this is way too small. Oh. Okay. Alright, I guess it doesn't want me to enlarge the display right now. But anyways, that is how to install KDE. Now on to our next distribution. Next up on the list is actually one that piqued my interest, since Windows 11 came out, it has been very polarizing. Some people are ecstatic for it, some people absolutely hate it. So, why not go with a lookalike that is running Linux? So here, this is Windows X11 Free Edition, LTS. It uses the Windows 11 interface and all the effects. It is supposed to be a one-to-one lookalike. Then you just go ahead and click that download. Download there. And then it'll download automatically from SourceForge. And this looks like another KDE-based operating system. But I am very interested in seeing how it turns out. And look at that, right off the bat, it looks exactly like Windows 11. And it looks like just like KDE, we're having that issue again. So this is definitely based off of KDE. Go ahead and give this an install, and just run right on through. Looks like we have a minimum drive requirement. So this is a little interesting. It looks like we need at least 30 gigabytes. Now that we have the correct amount of space, let's go ahead and install. And this looks exactly like installing with KDE, but it looks like it's pre-configured to look exactly like Windows 11. Alright, looks very similar to KDE, and it looks like we're done. Let's go ahead and give it a restart. Press enter. Looks very, very Windows 11-like. Let's go ahead and unlock it and see what we're greeted with. Yep, looks like we still have that issue where it won't go to full screen mode. Alright, that is Windows FX 11, I believe it was called. Let's move on to the next distribution. Next up on the list is another very popular OS, and that is Pop! OS. And you go right here, you just go ahead and download. And if you're using an NVIDIA graphics card, you want to download this one. But since I am using a virtual machine, I just went ahead and downloaded here. So here's what it looks like when it first boots up. And it brings us right into the installation. It looks like we have a bit of a problem with the screen size, so let's go ahead and change that real quick. There we go. Then we're going to select our keyboard and language. And we're going to do a clean install here. And we're going to use our VirtualBox disk that we created. Set that as Arch. And set our password. And I'm not going to go ahead and use encryption, so I'm just going to go ahead and select Don't Encrypt. Now I'll also add that this is one of the top recommended OSs if you're going to be gaming. It gives you basically everything that you would need if you want to have a Linux distribution specifically as a gaming machine. Alright, that was over pretty quickly, so let's go ahead and run the restarter. And go ahead and log in here. Set our display properly. This is our initial startup screen. I just have the settings open in the back. Gonna leave everything default. And we're gonna skip this for now. Alright, now we have Pop! OS installed. Let's go on to our final installation. Now for our final installation is Fedora. This is a very work-oriented OS, so if you need to get things done, this is your OS. So you go ahead, click the Download Now button, and download the ISO right here for x86. And we are going to do the Start Fedora Workstation. So we're going to highlight it with the light colored text here and press enter. And there we go, that looks pretty good. It looks like it automatically detected my screen size. Which this should not be an issue with most OSs, it's just the fact that I'm using a virtual machine. That looks pretty nice. So we are going to go ahead and install to hard drive. Going to go ahead and continue. This looks a lot like CentOS or Red Hat, which I guess that's what Fedora is supposed to be, is a Red Hat-like experience. And the reason why I'm not doing CentOS is because it's actually coming up to end of life at the end of this year. So if you're going to be using CentOS, this is actually a very, very similar experience. And I do have experience with CentOS. Alright, go ahead and begin installation. Alright, looks like Fedora is now finished installing, so let's go ahead and hit finish. Alright, so I just went ahead and manually rebooted that, and it looks like we have a complete installation now. But that's weird that it didn't have a reboot prompt or anything. Alright, so it looks like a very similar setup to quite a few others that we've already installed. Go ahead and enter this. And it looks like we're all set. Alright, now we have Fedora fully installed.
Well guys, that's how you're gonna go ahead and install your Linux distribution on your computer. If I didn't cover one that you would like to see, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I will address that. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. I will be doing more videos in the future, going over each one of these different Linux distributions on how to set them up. Some of them I may omit because they were very similar to each other, but I will do my best to get as many as possible. Well guys, this is Arch, and I will see you in the next video.